I'm honestly surprised. I'm a little shocked. Not as shocked as maybe I thought I would be, but I released the top 35 list, and I was surprised at the number of people that were very dismayed at the fact that the new Slipknot album wasn't on there, that they didn't make the list. One thing I will say to preface this video is that if I did like a top 15 honorable mentions list, that album might have actually been on there. I'm thinking that if there was a top 50 albums instead of top 35, it probably would have been 47, 48, somewhere around there. But if I did that, quite honestly, I would be talking about right around half the videos, right around half the albums that I reviewed here in 2014. And really, whenever you do that, the exclusivity of that really starts to, well, fizzle and fade. 35 in reality is quite the endeavor, but I like the number. I was surprised that one person actually went so far as to say that within the video I had said that the album was going to be in the Album of the Year list, and I remember saying that there was a potential for it to happen. It was a potential thing where the album, if after a couple of more spins, gained even more momentum within my mind and how I felt about it, that there was a potential that the album could potentially crack the top 35 list and actually be on there. However, one thing that I have to say about that is this is the middle of October. There are a number of blockbuster releases that have come out ever since that time. I know, it may seem like it's a bit unfair, or almost like there's a bias against Slipknot, or this is just another chapter of a vendetta that I seem to have with the band ever since one of the very first videos on this channel back in 2010. When the reality of it is that the album itself wouldn't have exactly been very high on the top 35 list had it made it at that time at all. It would have been something that would have probably been on the outside looking in, either that or would have been within the 30 to 35 range. So whenever these newcomers, these new albums after it came out and really turned a lot of heads, we really had some stiff competition for the top spot based around some of the albums that were released. Well, that definitely threw things through a little bit of a loop. And it's definitely something that ousted out a lot of proverbial contenders to, really round up the list as opposed to now being on the outside looking in. I don't have a vendetta against the band. I didn't leave them off simply for selfish reasons or based off of a bias or based off of reputation. Even though to really include them on the list would have probably been the one that would have scared out more views and would have done things so whacked out that I probably would have lost like 10,000 subscribers because they seem to crusade around me whenever it comes to this. But I make lists based around my pure feelings. I make lists based around how I feel about the albums. I examine them throughout the year. I examine them literally every time that I listen to them to ensure that I didn't make some irrational judgments about some things. And believe me, that's the reason why some albums that seem to get near perfect scores or that seem like they really are going to carry a lot of momentum going into the Album of the Year list eventually fizzle and fade, or in some cases perhaps maybe don't even make it to the list at all. The reason for that is easy. It's because the first time I listen to it, it sounds great, but the second, third, or the fourth, it just doesn't hold as much memory. And then whenever you get into the fifth and sixth, it just doesn't exactly captivate. Which most albums will not captivate the same way as they do the first time that you hit them. But at the same time, in order for an album to truly be memorable, in order for an album to truly be a representation of a year, such as the Album of the Year list in 2014, they have to be ones that definitely hold a candle to memory for a long period of time. Really ones that are able to span either an entire year if it's an album from January or February, or truly special albums if they're ones that are from closer to the end of the year. In reality, the whole entire list's idea seems kind of flawed, considering a lot of the stuff from the ass end of the year may seem like it's able to sneak on board. When in reality, there are a lot of heavy releases that come out during this time, especially in heavy metal. It's at least something that I've noticed within the past couple. So at any rate, for all of you Slipknot fans that feel extremely hurt over the fact that I didn't include this on the list, I don't apologize for it. I honestly don't. As I mentioned before, this is something where it wasn't going to be very high on the list anyway, even whenever I reviewed it in the middle part of, October. In fact, I wasn't even really planning on doing a full Slipknot discography. It was just a strange idea that came into my head one evening, and I knew that I had to do some things the next day very early, so it kept me up and kept me active. I was doing something, and I really wanted to actually take the time to actually go through all of the music, because I felt like I kind of blindly, talked shit, and that's not really what I'm all about usually. But this was also 4 years ago, and it also kind of showcases a little bit of growth. I wanted to be honest about the albums. That's the reason why I reviewed all of them, because I knew I was going to be reviewing the new one. So, no, there still isn't a bias. No, there still isn't this savage vendetta that I have against Slipknot, where I feel the need to omit them from everything based around who they are, or what kind of music they are, or what my reputation is. That's simply unfair. They just simply didn't make the list. There were more than 35 albums that were better than theirs. Maybe not in your list. Maybe not in your mind. But that's okay. Us having differing opinions on that has always been one of the best aspects about this channel. It's what encourages a lot of conversation. It's what encourages us to kind of grow together as music fans. My list may have given you guys a couple of new bands to check out. Your list may give me a couple new bands to check out, or another fan. So that's kind of what it's all about. You construct these lists in order to perhaps push the music forward by giving other people the individual opportunity to listen to something new and check it out and see why it was so great in somebody else's eyes. Doesn't always mean that it's going to be great to you, or to the end user, or to the person that takes your recommendation, but it does mean that they try it. It does mean that they sample it. Okay, maybe I do apologize a little bit. Maybe I apologize for the fact that, in order to satisfy some people, I would have had to have been kind of impure to myself. It's kind of unfair whenever I put it that way, isn't it? So, let's just kind of agree to disagree with this one. I never said that there was a guarantee to be on the Album of the Year list. But, hey, if they keep releasing albums and they continue to grow off of what happened with .5 The Great Chapter, there's a potential that maybe they will make the list one day. That truly will bring this channel full circle.